Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it, then let's evaluate together. The Pinnacle Hotel in Manhattan glittered like a crown jewel against the New York skyline. Its grand ballroom, bathed in the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, buzzed with the chatter of the elite. The air carried the scent of champagne and tuberose, mingling with the faint hum of a live jazz band playing a sultry rendition of Fly Me to the Moon. Tables draped in ivory silk groaned under the weight of gold-trimmed plates and towering floral arrangements, each petal imported from some far-flung corner of the world. This wasn't just a wedding. It was the wedding of the year, the union of Chloe Evans, a social media influencer with 3 million followers, and Marcus Tate, a tech entrepreneur whose startup had just sold for a cool $300 million. The guest list was a who's who of New York's glitterati, CEOs, reality TV stars, and even a minor European royal, all vetted to ensure the event's exclusivity. Outside, paparazzi swarmed, their flashes battling the velvet dusk, while the hashtag Chloe and Marcus trended globally before the vows were even exchanged. Into this sea of couture and diamonds stepped Zara Brooks, a 35-year-old black woman whose presence seemed to soften the room's sharp edges. Her skin, a rich mahogany, glowed under the chandelier light, and her natural curls were swept into a high, elegant bun secured with a simple wooden pin. She wore a sleeveless linen dress in a deep sapphire blue, its clean lines falling just above her ankles, unadorned by jewelry or flash. In her hands, she carried a small gift wrapped in recycled craft paper, tied with a twine bow, a humble contrast to the glittering gift table piled with designer boxes. Zara's beauty was understated but striking. Warm brown eyes that held a quiet intensity, a scattering of freckles across her nose, and a smile that hinted at both kindness and steel. She moved with a grace that didn't demand attention, but earned it, her worn but polished flats clicking softly on the marble floor. As she approached the guest check-in, a sleek woman named Jenna, the concierge, glanced up from her clipboard. Her eyes swept over Zara, lingering on the absence of a designer bag, the plain dress, the lack of bling, and her smile tightened. "Staff entrance is down the hall," Jenna said, her tone polite but clipped, pointing to a sign marked "Employees Only." Zara's lips curved into a faint, patient smile. "I'm a guest," she said, her voice smooth as a summer breeze, handing over her invitation, a cream card embossed with gold lettering. Zara Brooks. Jenna's brow arched, flipping the card as if expecting a typo. "One moment," she muttered, stepping away to murmur into her headset. Zara stood quietly, the gift held close, as a wave of guests swept past. A trio of women in shimmering gowns, one in emerald satin, another in gold sequins, the third in a feathered blush-pink dress, paused, their laughter sharp and sudden. "Is that the caterer?" The woman in emerald, Samantha Wells, a lifestyle vlogger, said loudly, her voice cutting through the lobby. Her friends, Paige Larson, a beauty brand heiress, and Kristen Holt, a reality TV star, giggled, their eyes raking Zara's outfit. "What's with the gift wrap? Did she raid a recycling bin?" Paige said, snapping a photo with her phone. "This is Instagram gold." Kristen leaned in, her feathered dress rustling. "Honey, this isn't a craft fair." Zara didn't flinch. She met Samantha's gaze, her expression serene but steady, like someone who'd faced sharper winds and kept walking. "It's a gift from the heart," she said softly, her tone polite but firm. Samantha blinked, thrown by the quiet confidence, then smirked. "Oh, sweetie, heart doesn't get you into a $1 million wedding." The lobby buzzed as more guests arrived. Men in bespoke tuxedos, women in dresses that cost more than cars, forming a loose semicircle around Zara, drawn by the spectacle. A tech exec named Derek, his cufflinks glinting with sapphires, leaned toward his wife, Mia, and muttered, "Who let the hipster in? This isn't a farmer's market." Mia, draped in ruby silk, laughed. "Bet she's here to pitch some Etsy shop." Before Zara could respond, Lucas Bennett stormed into the lobby, a 38-year-old real estate tycoon whose presence commanded the room. Tall and lean, with sharp cheekbones and dark hair streaked with gray, he wore a tailored Tom Ford suit that screamed money. His green eyes, cold and calculating, were fixed on his phone as he barked into it. "I don't care about the permits. Close the deal by Monday or you're out." He didn't notice Zara until he collided with her, nearly knocking the gift from her hands. "Watch it!" he snapped, his gaze flicking over her with disdain. "What are you, the help?" The crowd tittered, but Zara held her ground, her smile unwavering. "Maybe you should watch where you're going, Mr. Big Shot," she said, her voice laced with humor but sharp enough to sting. Lucas's eyes narrowed, unaccustomed to being challenged, but he brushed past her, muttering, "Whatever." Jenna returned, now flanked by the wedding planner, a wiry woman named Carla with a severe bun and a tablet glowing with schedules. "Ms. Brooks," Carla said, her voice dripping with skepticism. "Your invitation checks out, but—" She paused, eyeing Zara's dress. "This is a high-profile event. You don't seem dressed for the occasion. Perhaps you're on the wrong floor. The staff meal is downstairs." Zara's fingers tightened briefly around her gift, the only sign of strain in her composed posture. "I'm here for Chloe and Marcus," she said evenly. "I was invited." Carla's lips pursed, and she tapped her tablet. "There's no place card for you, and the seating chart is final. I'm sorry, but you'll need to leave." Before Zara could respond, Chloe Evans appeared, a vision in a mermaid-cut gown shimmering with Swarovski crystals. Her blonde hair was swept into an intricate updo, and her diamond tiara caught the light like a crown. She glided toward the check-in, her entourage trailing like a royal court, and her eyes landed on Zara. Her smile froze, then twisted into something sharp. "Zara Brooks," Chloe said, her voice loud enough to draw every eye in the lobby. "Oh my gosh, you actually showed up." She laughed, a brittle, performative sound, and turned to her bridesmaids, Samantha, Paige, and Kristen. "Guys, this is Zara, my old college acquaintance. Still living that, what's it called, authentic vibe?" The bridesmaids burst into laughter, their phones already out, filming. "That dress looks like it came from a thrift store," Kristen said, zooming in on Zara's flats. "And those shoes. Girl, no." Samantha leaned in, her emerald gown rustling. "Zara, babe, this is $1 million wedding. Did you think you'd blend in looking like you just left a yoga retreat?" Zara stood still, her brown eyes calm but piercing. "I came to celebrate your day, Chloe," she said, her voice soft but clear. "The gift is for you and Marcus." She held out the craft paper package, its twine bow simple but neat. Chloe's smile didn't waver, but her eyes glinted with something cruel. "Newspaper wrapping? Really?" she said, not taking the gift. "What is it, a coupon book?" "Oh, Zara, you're so quaint." The crowd laughed, the sound rolling through the lobby like a wave. Someone shouted, "Send her to the gift table. She can organize the trash." Carla, the planner, stepped forward, her patience gone. "That's enough," she said, nodding to two security guards who'd materialized from the sidelines. "Ma'am, you're disrupting the event. Let's go." The guards, both tall and stone-faced, approached. One, named Mike, said politely but firmly, "Please come with us. We don't want a scene." Zara didn't argue. She nodded, shoulders back, and began walking toward the exit, the gift still in her arms. The crowd parted, their whispers sharp as knives. "What a disgrace," Mia muttered, sipping her champagne. Derek chuckled. "Bet she's crashing for the free food." As Zara passed the floral arches, Samantha, Paige, and Kristen closed in, their gowns a glittering barricade. Samantha leaned close, her lipstick curling. "You're a walking embarrassment, Zara. Did you think we wouldn't notice you sneaking in?" Paige flicked a manicured nail at the gift, knocking it slightly in Zara's arms. "What's in there, your life savings?" "Oh, wait, you don't have any." Kristen grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing tray and accidentally splashed it across Zara's dress, the liquid soaking the sapphire linen. "Oops," Kristen said, smirking as the crowd howled. "Maybe that'll teach you to dress like you belong." Samantha's Instagram Live hit 5,000 viewers, comments flooding, total loser vibes. Kick her out. Zara's grip on her gift tightened, her face serene, but the champagne dripped like a public branding. Chloe posed for a photographer, her gown sparkling, and called out, "Told you not to invite her, Carla. She's embarrassing herself." Chloe climbed onto the stage, her tiara glinting, and grabbed the microphone from the MC. "Everyone, can we talk about this?" she said, her voice dripping with mock pity, gesturing at Zara, now halfway across the ballroom with the guards. "Zara Brooks, my old college buddy, thought she could waltz into my wedding like it's a charity event. Look at her, crashing my day with that rag and a gift wrapped in garbage." The crowd erupted, their laughter a vicious wave. Chloe raised a champagne flute, toasting to keeping our standards high, and Zara out. A guest threw an olive, hitting Zara's shoulder, and Chloe clapped, her smile venomous. "That's the spirit," she crowed, as the live comments surged. "Savage. Destroy her." Zara's steps were steady, her face composed, as if the weight of their stares was nothing new. The ballroom stretched on, each moment amplifying the humiliation. Kristen tossed her hair, shouting, "Maybe she thought this was a potluck." The crowd roared, their cruelty a living thing. Mike, the guard, leaned in slightly, his voice low. "Sorry, ma'am. Just doing our job." Zara nodded, her eyes meeting his briefly. "I understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But then the air shifted. Marcus Tate, the groom, strode onto the stage, his tuxedo crisp, his face a mix of shock and fury. At 30, he was boyishly handsome, with tousled blonde hair and a reputation for charm, but his eyes were locked on Zara. He yanked the microphone from Chloe's hand, his voice booming. "Enough!" The crowd froze, glasses clinking as hands trembled. Chloe's jaw dropped, her tiara tilting slightly. "Zara Brooks is the reason I'm standing here today," Marcus said, his voice breaking with emotion. "When no one believed in my startup, she funded me. She stayed up late helping me pitch, believed in me when I had nothing. You invited her to humiliate her, Chloe, but you're the one who looks small right now." A silent tremor rippled through the room. Samantha's phone slipped, her live still running, capturing the shock. Comments exploded. "Wait. What? She's his investor?" Paige's sequined gown seemed to dim, her face paling. Kristen's laugh died in her throat. Lucas, standing near the back, crossed his arms, his cold green eyes now fixed on Zara with a flicker of curiosity. Chloe stammered, her voice shrill. "Marcus, you're ruining our day." But Marcus shook his head, turning to Zara, who stood near the glass doors, her gift still clutched tightly. "I'm sorry, Zara," he said, loud enough for all to hear. "You deserved better than this." Zara met his gaze, her brown eyes softening. She nodded once, a small private smile touching her lips, then turned and walked out, the doors closing behind her with a soft thud. The crowd was silent, the jazz band faltering. Chloe's tiara slipped, dangling in her hair, as she clutched Marcus's arm, whispering frantically. But the damage was done. The live stream hit 10,000 viewers, comments turning against Chloe. "She's done. Zara's a queen." Zara slid into the back of a yellow cab, the Manhattan lights blurring through the window. Her dress, still damp with champagne, clung to her skin, but her posture remained regal. Her phone buzzed. Lila, her best friend, on FaceTime. "Girl, you okay?" Lila's voice was warm, her braids swinging as she leaned into the camera. "You're a queen, Z. They're just jealous." Zara smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Maybe, but I'm done with their games, Lila." She leaned her head against the window, the city's pulse a dull hum. Inside, she felt the old wound reopen, the betrayal from her ex. A man who'd promised forever, then left her for someone better connected. She'd built walls since then, high and thick, and tonight's humiliation only reinforced them. Across town, Lucas Bennett sat in his penthouse office, the skyline sprawling beyond his floor-to-ceiling windows. He scrolled through Instagram, pausing on Chloe's post, now flooded with backlash. A clip of Marcus's speech was going viral, Zara's poised exit trending under hashtag Zara Brooks. Lucas leaned back, his fingers drumming on the desk. "Who is this woman?" he muttered, his curiosity piqued. He didn't know it yet, but that collision in the lobby was the spark of something bigger, something that would upend his carefully controlled world. Hey, if Zara's grace under fire got you hooked, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Would you walk out like Zara or clap back? Let's keep this story rolling. The Chelsea Art Gallery hummed with the kind of energy only New York could muster on a crisp fall evening. Exposed brick walls showcased vibrant canvases, their bold strokes lit by industrial pendant lights that cast a warm amber glow. The air smelled of espresso and expensive perfume, and the crowd, a mix of hipster artists, Wall Street suits, and influencers in oversized sunglasses, mingled with the clink of wine glasses and the low buzz of conversation. Waiters in black vests wove through the room, offering trays of artisanal cheeses and mini crab cakes. It was the kind of event where deals were made, egos were stroked, and Instagram stories were born. Zara Brooks stood before a Kehinde Wiley painting, its larger-than-life portrait of a black man in streetwear against a floral backdrop commanding her attention. Her black dress, a sleek, form-fitting number with a subtle slit at the thigh, hugged her curves without screaming for attention. Her curls were loose tonight, framing her face in a soft halo, and her only accessory was a thin silver bracelet, a gift from her late grandmother. At 35, Zara's presence was magnetic, her warm brown eyes scanning the canvas with a mix of admiration and calculation. She wasn't just here for the art. She was bidding to raise funds for her education nonprofit, and this painting was her target. Beside her, Lila Carter, Zara's best friend, sipped a glass of rosé, her braids swinging as she leaned in. Lila, a 34-year-old freelance journalist with a knack for stirring the pot, wore a mustard-yellow jumpsuit that turned heads. "You're dropping a mill on that, aren't you, Z?" Lila teased, her voice loud enough to draw a few glances. Zara rolled her eyes, a smile tugging at her lips. "For my kid's scholarship fund? Maybe. But I'm not here to flex." Lila snorted. "Girl, you don't flex, you shine. That's why half this room's staring." Zara didn't notice the stares, but she felt the weight of the past week. The wedding at the Pinnacle still stung, Chloe's venom, the champagne on her dress, the crowd's laughter. She'd seen the viral clip of Marcus's speech, the internet crowning her a queen, but the humiliation lingered like a bruise. Her phone buzzed in her clutch, a text from Lila from earlier. "You're trending, Z. How Zara Brooks is slaying." Zara had replied, "I'd rather trend for my work than their drama." She was done with high society games, or so she told herself. Across the gallery, Lucas Bennett held court with a group of art collectors, his tailored navy suit accentuating his tall, lean frame. At 38, he was a study in controlled power, sharp cheekbones, dark hair with a hint of gray, and green eyes that could cut through a room. His voice, smooth but commanding, carried over the crowd as he discussed a potential land deal in Miami. "The waterfront's prime real estate. I'm closing it next week," he said, flashing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The collectors nodded, impressed, but Lucas's attention wandered, his gaze landing on the wily painting and the woman standing in front of it. He didn't recognize Zara at first, not with her curls down and that dress that made his pulse kick up a notch. But when she turned, her profile caught the light, and he froze. It was her, the woman from the wedding, the one who'd called him out with that sharp, "Mr. Big Shot." Lucas's lips twitched, a mix of irritation and intrigue. She'd left an impression, walking out of that ballroom with her head high, and now here she was, looking like she owned the place. The auction began, and the room hushed as the auctioneer, a wiry man in a bow tie, took the stage. Lot 12, Kehinde Wiley's Portrait of a King. Bidding starts at $1 million. Zara raised her paddle, her expression calm but focused. 1.2, she called, her voice cutting through the silence. Heads turned, whispers rippling. Lucas, standing near the back, raised his paddle without thinking. 2 million, he said, his tone almost bored, but his eyes locked on Zara. He wasn't even sure why he was bidding. He didn't need the painting, but something about her confidence made him want to test her. Zara's brow arched, recognizing him instantly. She raised her paddle again. 2.5. The crowd murmured, sensing a showdown. Lucas smirked, leaning forward. 3 million. Lila nudged Zara, whispering, "Who's this guy think he is?" Zara's lips curved, a glint in her eyes. "Trouble," she muttered, then raised her paddle. 3.5. The room gasped and Lucas's smirk faltered. He hesitated, then lowered his paddle, conceding. The auctioneer banged his gavel. "Sold to Ms. Zara Brooks for $3.5 million. The crowd erupted in applause, but Zara's gaze flicked to Lucas, a silent challenge. He raised his glass in a mock toast, his expression unreadable. Lila laughed, clapping Zara's shoulder. "You just smoked Mr. Fancy Suit, Z." Zara shook her head, but her smile betrayed her amusement. "Let's not start a war, Lila." After the auction, Lucas approached, weaving through the crowd with the ease of someone used to getting what he wanted. "Ms. Brooks," he said, his voice low, almost teasing. "You've got expensive taste." Zara turned, her posture relaxed, but her eyes sharp. "And you've got a habit of jumping into fights you can't win, Mr. Bennett." Lucas chuckled, caught off guard by her wit. "Touché. Let me make it up to you. Coffee, my treat." Lila, standing nearby, raised an eyebrow, mouthing, "Go for it." Zara hesitated, then shrugged. "Fine, but I'm picky about my coffee." They ended up at a corner table in the gallery's pop-up cafe, the air thick with the scent of roasted beans. Zara leaned back, crossing her arms. "Oat milk latte, no foam, exactly 140 degrees, she said, her tone deadpan but playful. Lucas blinked, then laughed, heading to the counter. "You're serious?" he called over his shoulder. "Dead serious," she shot back. Lila, sipping her rosé, whispered, "He's into you, Z. Look at that grin." Zara waved her off. "He's into winning, Lila, that's all." Lucas returned, balancing 2 cups, but in his attempt to set them down, he knocked one over, splashing coffee across his pristine white shirt. "Damn it," he muttered, grabbing napkins. Zara burst out laughing, the sound bright and unguarded, and Lila joined in, nearly choking on her wine. "You're a walking disaster, Bennett," Zara said, handing him more napkins. Lucas, red-faced but grinning, shook his head. "And you're loving my mess, Brooks." For a moment their eyes locked, the air between them charged with something neither could name. A week later, the Miami sun blazed over the convention center hosting TechCon, a glittering showcase of innovation and ambition. The halls buzzed with startup founders pitching to investors, their voices drowned out by the whir of drones demoing overhead. Zara, in a tailored blazer and jeans, stood on a stage, delivering a keynote on sustainable investing. Her slides flashed data on minority-led startups, her voice steady but passionate. Impact isn't just about profit. It's about people, she said, her brown eyes scanning the crowd. Invest in those the world overlooks, and you'll see returns that matter. In the front row, Lucas Bennett sat, his arms crossed, a faint smirk on his lips. He'd come to scout new ventures, but Zara's speech held his attention. She wasn't just smart, she was sharp, weaving data with stories that hit home. When the Q&A began, he raised his hand, his tone challenging. "Ms. Brooks, how's a small fund like yours gonna compete with the big dogs in tech?" The crowd leaned in, sensing a spark. Zara didn't miss a beat, her smile cool but pointed. "Like how your last deal in Miami fell through, Mr. Bennett. Do your homework, and you'll see small funds pivot faster." The room erupted in laughter, a few attendees clapping. Lucas's smirk widened, a mix of irritation and admiration. "Fair play," he said, leaning back. After her talk, Zara was swarmed by founders, but a commotion near the elevators caught her attention. She and Lucas, both heading for the exit, ended up in the same crowded elevator, along with Lila's hyperactive terrier, Barkley, who Lila had snuck into the conference. The doors closed, and the elevator jolted, grinding to a halt between floors. Barkley yipped furiously, his tiny paws scrabbling at Lucas's polished loafers. "Who brings a dog to a tech conference?" Lucas grumbled, trying to calm the pup. Zara laughed, kneeling to scoop Barkley up. "Lila does. He's got more followers than half these startups." Lucas, desperate to look competent, reached for Barkley, cooing, "Come here, buddy." The dog promptly nipped his finger, and Lucas yelped, shaking his hand. Zara doubled over, laughing so hard she nearly dropped Barkley. "Stick to real estate, not dog whispering," she gasped. Lucas, rubbing his finger, couldn't help but chuckle. "You're enjoying this way too much." The elevator lurched back to life, and as the doors opened, their eyes met again, a shared grin softening the moment. Lila, waiting outside, took one look at Lucas's disheveled state and smirked. "What did I miss? Y'all look like you survived a sitcom." The encounter might have faded into a funny memory, but fate, or bad luck, had other plans. At a farmer's market in Brooklyn the following weekend, Zara and Lila browsed stalls piled with heirloom tomatoes and fresh-baked sourdough, the air thick with the scent of basil and grilled corn. Zara, in a loose white tee and jeans, haggled over a jar of lavender honey, her laughter echoing as Lila tried to taste test every cheese sample. "You're gonna get us banned," Zara warned, nudging her friend. Lila grinned. "Worth it for free Gouda." Across the market, Lucas was on a mission, looking painfully out of place in his tailored blazer among the flannel-clad locals. He was picking a gift for his mother's birthday, muttering to himself as he examined a woven scarf. "Too boho," he said, tossing it back. Lila spotted him first, nudging Zara. "Yo, it's your coffee-spilling boyfriend." Zara groaned. "He's not my anything." But when Lucas turned, their eyes locked, and he waved, weaving through the crowd. "Hey, Brooks," he said, his tone lighter than before. "Didn't peg you for a farmer's market type?" Zara raised an eyebrow, holding up her honey jar. "And I didn't peg you for a guy who shops for his own gifts." Lila, never one to miss an opportunity, jumped in. "That scarf you were eyeing? Total grandma vibes. Try the pottery stall." Lucas flushed, but Zara stepped in, pointing to a booth with handcrafted jewelry. "Get her something simple, like those silver earrings. Classy, not flashy." They walked to the booth, but in the chaos of the crowd, Zara tripped over a crate, sending her honey jar flying. Lucas, with surprising reflexes, caught it mid-air, but not before knocking a tray of strawberries to the ground. The vendor, a grizzled man in overalls, laughed. "Y'all are a mess, but you're cute." Take some berries on the house." Zara and Lucas, both red-faced, burst out laughing, picking up the scattered fruit. "We're a disaster," Zara said, shaking her head. Lucas grinned, brushing dirt off his sleeve. "Yeah, but we're a fun disaster." As they parted ways, Lucas called after her. "Next time, I'm picking the spot. No crates to trip over." Zara smirked over her shoulder. "Good luck with that, Bennett." Lila, trailing behind, whispered, "Girl, he's smitten. You're in trouble." But trouble was already brewing. At a rooftop bar later that week, Lucas sipped a bourbon, his mind replaying Zara's laugh, her quick wit, the way she held her own. He didn't notice Vanessa Reed until she slid into the seat beside him. A 40-year-old real estate rival with sleek black hair and a smile that could cut glass, Vanessa had once been close to Lucas. Too close, some said. She leaned in, her voice low. "You're wasting your time with that Brooks woman, Lucas. She's not in our league." Lucas's jaw tightened, his eyes cold. "You don't know her, Vanessa." Vanessa's smile didn't falter. "Oh, I know enough. She's a nobody playing dress-up. Stick with me, and we can close that Miami deal together." Lucas stood, tossing a bill on the bar. "I'm not interested. Stay out of it." He walked away, but Vanessa's gaze followed him, her fingers tapping her phone. She pulled up Zara's LinkedIn, her lips curling. "Let's see how long you last, Zara Brooks." Back in Brooklyn, Zara sat in her favorite coffee shop, a cozy spot with mismatched chairs and the smell of fresh scones. She flipped through a book, but her thoughts drifted to Lucas, his clumsy charm, the way he'd caught that honey jar. Lila's voice echoed in her head. "He's into you, girl." But Zara's heart was guarded, scarred from a betrayal years ago that still stung. She closed her book, staring out the window at the city she loved. "He's trouble," she murmured to herself. "And I don't do trouble." The Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles was transformed into a glittering stage for the annual Stars of Tomorrow Gala, a fundraiser for youth education programs. The domed ceiling glowed under strings of fairy lights, reflecting off polished marble floors. Outside, the city skyline sparkled against the night, while inside, tables draped in navy linen held centerpieces of white orchids and candles that flickered like captured stars. The air smelled of citrus from signature cocktails and the faint musk of high-end cologne. Guests, philanthropists, Hollywood execs, and tech moguls mingled to the soft strum of a harpist, their laughter mingling with the clink of champagne flutes. It was a night of big checks and bigger egos, but beneath the glitz, the cause was real. Kids who needed a shot at a better future. Zara Brooks stood on a small stage, her crimson dress a bold contrast to the muted elegance around her. The gown, sleeveless with a flowing skirt and a subtle shimmer, hugged her curves before cascading to the floor, catching the light with every move. Her curls were pinned loosely, a few strands framing her face, and her brown eyes shone with a mix of nerves and determination. At 35, Zara was no stranger to speaking, but tonight felt different. She was here to pitch her nonprofit's new initiative, a scholarship fund for Black and Latino teens in STEM, and the room was packed with potential donors who could make or break it. She gripped the podium, her voice steady but warm. "Every kid deserves a chance to dream big," she said, her slides flashing images of smiling teens in lab coats. "My fund's goal is simple. Give them the tools, the mentors, the belief that they belong in boardrooms, not just classrooms." The crowd listened, some nodding, others scribbling notes. In the front row, Lucas Bennett sat, his tailored black suit sharp against the soft lighting. At 38, he was all angles and intensity, his green eyes fixed on Zara, not with his usual smirk, but with something softer, almost proud. He'd flown in for the gala, claiming it was for networking, But the truth was simpler. He couldn't stay away from her. Lila Carter, Zara's best friend, stood near the bar, her emerald green dress popping against her dark skin. She sipped a mojito, nudging a fellow guest. "That's my girl up there," she said, her braids swinging. "She's about to blow this room away." Lila caught Lucas's gaze on Zara and smirked, whispering to herself, "Oh, he's got it bad." Zara finished her speech to a wave of applause, and as she stepped off the stage, donors swarmed her, business cards in hand. Lucas hung back, watching her work the room with a grace that made his chest tighten. She wasn't just smart, she was electric, and he was starting to realize he was in deeper than he'd planned. After the speeches, the gala shifted to a cocktail hour on the observatory's terrace, the Hollywood sign glowing in the distance. Lila, ever the instigator, cornered Zara near a tray of mini empanadas. "Girl, Lucas hasn't taken his eyes off you all night," she said, popping a bite into her mouth. "He's got heart eyes, Z." Zara rolled her eyes, adjusting her dress. "Lila, you're seeing things. He's just networking." Lila snorted. "Networking my foot. That man's networking his way into your heart." Before Zara could protest, a DJ switched the music to a slow, soulful cover of At Last, and Lila's eyes lit up. "Oh, we're dancing. Come on." Zara laughed, trying to dodge, but Lila grabbed her arm, dragging her to the dance floor. "You're not sitting this out," she declared, then spotted Lucas nearby. With a mischievous grin, she waved him over. "Yo, Bennett, dance with my girl. She's too good for the sidelines." Lucas raised an eyebrow, but his lips twitched. "You sure she can keep up with me?" he teased, stepping closer. Zara crossed her arms, her tone playful. "Please, I'm the one who'll be carrying you." The crowd parted, and Lucas offered his hand, his touch warm and steady. "Let's find out," he said, his voice low. They moved to the center of the floor, the music wrapping around them like a cocoon. Lucas's hand settled on Zara's waist, her fingers resting lightly on his shoulder. The fairy lights above cast a golden glow, softening the edges of the world. He tried a spin, but his foot caught hers, and she stumbled, laughing. "You dance like you're closing a real estate deal," she said, her eyes sparkling. Lucas chuckled, pulling her closer. "And you're the best deal I've ever seen, Brooks." Their banter faded as the music slowed, their bodies swaying in sync. The air felt charged, like the moment before a storm. Lucas's thumb brushed her hand, and Zara's breath caught, her walls trembling under his gaze. Lila, watching from the sidelines, raised her glass, mouthing, "Told you." The song hit a crescendo, and Lucas dipped Zara slightly, his face inches from hers. "Your trouble, Zara Brooks," he murmured, his voice rough. She smiled, her heart racing. "And you're a mess, Lucas Bennett." He leaned in, their lips brushing in a soft, tentative kiss that sent a shiver down her spine. The crowd cheered, and Lila's voice cut through. "Y'all, get a room!" Zara pulled back, her cheeks warm, but her smile was brighter than the city below. Lucas grinned, uncharacteristically sheepish. "Worth it," he said, and she laughed, the sound like music. But the glow of that moment didn't last. Back in New York, the internet was buzzing with a new scandal. Vanessa Reed, Lucas's rival and former flame, had teamed up with Chloe Evans to stir the pot. A video from the Pinnacle wedding surfaced online, edited to make Zara look like a gatecrasher who'd provoked Chloe's outburst. The clip, posted by Chloe's account, racked up millions of views, with captions like, "When you show up uninvited and get what you deserve." Comments flooded in. "Who does she think she is? Total clout chaser." Zara's nonprofit took a hit, with donors pulling back, spooked by the drama. She sat in her Brooklyn apartment, a cozy space filled with plants and vintage books, scrolling through the hate. Her phone buzzed. Lila, texting. "This is BS, Z. You're bigger than their lies." Zara typed back. "I'm fine. Just tired." But she wasn't fine. The betrayal from her ex years ago echoed in her mind. A man who'd called her not enough before leaving. She couldn't shake the fear that Lucas might see her the same way. The real blow came at a rooftop brunch in Manhattan, where Zara met Margaret Bennett, Lucas's mother. Margaret, a 65-year-old matriarch in a cream Chanel suit, exuded old money frost. Her silver hair was swept into a chignon, and her blue eyes assessed Zara like a diamond under a loupe. They sat at a table overlooking Central Park, the clatter of cutlery and chatter fading as Margaret spoke. "Ms. Brooks," she said, her voice clipped. "You seem accomplished, but you don't belong in our world. Lucas needs someone suitable, someone who understands our circles." Zara's fingers tightened around her coffee mug, but her voice was calm. "Your world's built on money, Mrs. Bennett, not heart. I've got plenty of the latter." Margaret's lips pursed. "Heart doesn't pay for influence, dear. End this before it embarrasses you both." Zara left the brunch, her chest tight. She walked through Central Park, the autumn leaves crunching under her boots, and called Lila. "She thinks I'm not good enough," Zara said, her voice cracking. Lila's response was instant. "Screw her, Z. You're a damn titan. Lucas better have your back." Zara wanted to believe he would, but doubt gnawed at her. She hadn't told Lucas about the meeting, afraid it would push him away. Her past taught her one thing. Trust was a risk, and she wasn't sure she could take it. The storm broke at a press conference in Midtown where Lucas was announcing a new real estate project, a eco-friendly high-rise in Brooklyn. Reporters packed the sleek conference room, cameras flashing as Lucas stood at a podium, his suit crisp, his demeanor polished. Zara, invited as a guest, stood near the back, her navy blazer and jeans blending into the crowd. She'd come to support him, but the weight of the online hate and Margaret's words made her feel exposed. A reporter, tipped off by Vanessa, raised her hand. "Mr. Bennett, what's your take on the Zara Brooks scandal? Is she dragging your reputation down?" The room went quiet, all eyes on Lucas. Zara's heart sank, her fingers curling into her palms. She braced for him to dodge, to protect his image. But Lucas's jaw tightened, and he leaned into the mic, his voice steady but fierce. "Zara Brooks is the most genuine person I know," he said, his green eyes scanning the crowd until they found her. "Those rumors are garbage, spread by people too small to handle her shine. She's built more real impact than most of you in this room, and I'm ashamed I didn't speak up sooner. If you're coming for her, you're coming for me." A murmur rippled through the room, cameras flashing wildly. Zara's breath caught, her eyes glistening. The reporter pressed. "So, you're standing by her?" Lucas didn't hesitate. "Damn right I am." The crowd erupted, some clapping, others scribbling furiously. Social media lit up. Hashtag Lucas defends Zara, trending within minutes. Chloe's video began losing traction, buried under a wave of support for Zara. Vanessa, watching from a corner, clenched her phone, her smile tight. Zara slipped out to the hallway, her heart pounding. Lucas followed, catching her near a window overlooking the city. "Zara," he said, his voice soft but urgent. She turned, her eyes wet but warm. "You didn't have to do that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. "Yeah, I did. You're worth it, Brooks." She smiled, a real one this time, and pulled him into a hug, her cheek against his chest. His arms wrapped around her, steady and sure, and for the first time in years, Zara felt her walls crack, just a little. Their hug was interrupted by Lila, who burst into the hallway, her phone in hand. "Y'all are viral, and I'm living for it," she said, showing them the trending hashtag. Zara laughed, wiping her eyes. "You're impossible, Lila." Lucas grinned, slinging an arm around Zara's shoulders. "She's not wrong. We're a vibe." Lila raised an eyebrow. "A vibe?" "Oh, you're officially whipped, Bennett." They all laughed, the tension melting away, but Zara's mind lingered on Margaret's warning. Lucas had stood up for her, but would he stand against his own family? Later that night, Lucas sat in his Manhattan penthouse, the city lights sprawling beyond his windows. He scrolled through the press conference clips, Zara's face filling his screen. His phone buzzed, a text from Vanessa Reed. "Nice speech, Lucas, but you're playing a dangerous game. I know what you did 10 years ago. Call me." His jaw clenched, his fingers hovering over the screen. The secret he'd buried, a mistake that cost someone dearly, felt closer to the surface than ever. He deleted the message, but the unease lingered. Zara was changing him, making him want to be better, but his past was a shadow he couldn't outrun. In Brooklyn, Zara curled up on her couch, a mug of chamomile tea in hand. The gala, the kiss, Lucas's defense, it all swirled in her mind. She opened her laptop, pulling up an email from a donor who'd recommitted to her fund, citing Lucas's speech. A smile tugged at her lips, but her heart was heavy. She'd trusted before and been burned. Could she trust Lucas, or was this just another dream that would fade? Her phone lit up with a text from him. "Dinner tomorrow? No coffee spills, I promise." She laughed, typing back, "You're on, Bennett, but I'm picking the spot." As she set her phone down, the city hummed outside, alive with possibilities and risks. The Brooklyn skyline shimmered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Zara Brooks's office, a modest space tucked above a coffee shop that always smelled faintly of cinnamon. Papers littered her desk. Spreadsheets, pitch decks, emails from donors, each a piece of the puzzle she'd built as a venture capitalist and nonprofit founder. At 35, Zara was used to pressure, but tonight the weight felt heavier. Her sapphire linen dress, now folded in her closet after the Pinnacle wedding, seemed a distant memory. She wore a simple black sweater and jeans, her curls tied back in a loose bun, her brown eyes scanning a headline on her laptop. Zara Brooks's Fund Faces Scrutiny after Startup Flop. The article, published by a major tech blog, dissected her recent investment in Greenwave, a renewable energy startup that had just declared bankruptcy. Comments piled up online, overhyped and underdelivered. Another diversity hire who can't hack it. Zara leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. The failure stung, not just because of the money, $2 million of her fund's capital, but because she'd believed in Greenwave's mission. She'd vetted their tech, their team, their vision. But a supply chain snafu and a shady CFO had tanked it, and now her reputation was taking the hit. Her phone buzzed, a text from Lila Carter, her best friend. "You okay, Z? This article's trash. You're still a boss." Zara typed back. "Trying to be. Thanks, Lila." But doubt crept in, whispering memories of her ex, who'd called her too ambitious before walking out. She pushed the thought away, but it lingered like a shadow. Across town, in a sleek Manhattan penthouse, Lucas Bennett paced his living room, the city's lights casting long shadows across his hardwood floors. At 38, he was a master at controlling chaos, real estate deals, boardroom battles, but Zara was unraveling him. His tailored gray suit was unbuttoned, tie discarded, and his green eyes were fixed on his phone, scrolling through the same article about Zara. He'd seen her speech in L.A., her grace under fire at the wedding, her laugh at the farmer's market. She wasn't just impressive, she was real, and he was falling hard. But the article wasn't the only problem. His mother, Margaret Bennett, had doubled down, texting him that morning. "End things with Zara, she's a liability." And then there was Vanessa Reed, whose cryptic messages about his past were growing bolder. One call, Lucas, and your secret's out. He tossed his phone onto the couch, running a hand through his dark hair. 10 years ago, he'd made a mistake. A shady land deal that hurt a small community. He'd been young, cocky, and desperate to prove himself. The lawsuit was settled, his name cleared, but the guilt lingered, a weight he hadn't shared with anyone, not even Zara. He wanted to tell her, but every time he got close, fear stopped him. What if she saw him differently? What if she walked away? The crisis hit Zara hardest at a tech panel in Soho, where she was a guest speaker alongside other investors. The loft space buzzed with startup founders and journalists, the air thick with the scent of cold brew and ambition. Zara, in a navy blazer and white tee, spoke about resilience in investing, but the moderator, a smug tech bro named Ryan, cut her off. Zara, with Greenwave's collapse, some say you're out of your depth. Care to comment? The room went quiet, eyes on her. Zara's jaw tightened, but she smiled, her voice steady. Every investor takes hits. Greenwave was a risk I believed in. I'm focused on what's next. Ryan smirked, pressing. But can your fund recover? Donors are pulling out. Zara held his gaze, her tone sharp but calm. My fund's been through worse. We're not here to play it safe. We're here to change lives. The crowd clapped, but the damage was done. Backstage, she overheard two founders whispering, "She's done. No one's touching her now." Her phone lit up with an email. Another donor had withdrawn, citing reputational concerns. She slipped into a quiet hallway, her breath shaky. Lila called, her voice fierce. "Z, you killed that panel. Don't let these clowns get to you." Zara forced a laugh. "Trying, Lila, but it's a lot." Lucas, who'd been in the audience, found her in the hallway. "You were incredible up there," he said, his voice warm. Zara looked up, her eyes tired but grateful. "Thanks, Lucas, but it doesn't feel like it." He stepped closer, his hand brushing her arm. "Let me help. I've got contacts, investors who'd back you in a heartbeat." Zara's smile faded, her voice firm. "I don't need a savior, Lucas. I need to fix this myself." He nodded, respecting her space, but his eyes lingered, a mix of admiration and worry. "I know you will," he said softly. "But I'm here, okay?" The real storm brewed online. Vanessa Reed, smelling blood, amplified the Greenwave scandal, leaking emails that suggested Zara had ignored red flags about the startup's finances. The emails were doctored, but the damage was instant. Hashtag Zara fraud trended, and her nonprofit's website crashed from traffic. Donors flooded her inbox with demands for transparency, and a major partner threatened to sue. Zara worked late into the night, her Brooklyn apartment lit by the glow of her laptop, coffee mugs piling up. Lila stopped by, dropping off takeout. "You're not eating enough, Z," she said, setting down a box of dumplings. Zara sighed, rubbing her eyes. "I'm eating stress. Does that count?" Lila hugged her. "You're tougher than this, but you gotta let someone in. Lucas, maybe?" Zara shook her head. "I can't lean on him, Lila. Not when I'm this mess." Meanwhile, Margaret Bennett summoned Lucas to her Upper East Side townhouse, a fortress of marble and antique rugs. Over tea in her sunlit parlor, she laid down the law. "Zara's dragging you down, Lucas," she said, her voice like threatened to pull funding entirely. Zara sat in her Brooklyn office, the glow of her laptop casting shadows across her face. The cinnamon scent from the coffee shop below usually comforted her, but tonight it felt stifling. She scrolled through the venomous comments under #Zara fraud. She's a scam artist, knew she couldn't handle the big leagues. Her fingers hovered over a draft email to her board, explaining the doctored leaks, but doubt paralyzed her. What if they didn't believe her? What if this was the end of everything she'd built? Her phone buzzed again. Lila Carter, her best friend, FaceTiming from her cluttered apartment, where vinyl records and half-finished articles littered the floor. Lila's braids were tied back, her eyes fierce. "Z, you gotta fight this," she said, waving a mug of tea for emphasis. "Vanessa's playing dirty, but you're tougher than her whole game." Zara sighed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know, Lila. This feels like too much." Lila leaned closer to the screen. "Girl, you've bounced back from worse. Remember when that startup tanked in 19? You rebuilt from scratch. You're Zara freaking Brooks." Zara managed a small smile. "Thanks, Lila, but I need a plan, not a pep talk." Lila grinned. "Plan's coming, Z. I'm digging into Vanessa's dirt, journalist style." Across town, Lucas Bennett stood on his penthouse balcony, the Manhattan wind tugging at his unbuttoned shirt. The city's lights glittered below, but his mind was on Zara. He'd seen the #Zara fraud hashtag, the doctored emails, the donor exodus. His first instinct was to fix it, call his contacts, pull strings. But Zara's words at the Soho panel stopped him. "I don't need a savior." He respected her strength, but it didn't ease the ache in his chest. She was fighting alone, and he wanted to be in her corner. His phone buzzed, a text from Margaret Bennett, his mother. "This scandal proves my point. End it with Zara before she drags you down." Lucas deleted the message, but another came through from Vanessa Reed. "You can't protect her, Lucas. One more leak, and she's finished. Call me." His jaw clenched, the ghost of his past, a decade-old land deal that displaced families, looming closer. He hadn't told Zara, and the longer he waited, the heavier the secret felt. The breaking point came at a charity dinner in Tribeca, where Zara was set to receive an award for her non-profit's work. The venue, a converted warehouse with exposed beams and candlelit tables, buzzed with donors and activists. Zara wore a forest green dress that flowed like silk, her curls loose, but her usual confidence was frayed. The green wave fallout had her on edge, and whispers followed her through the room. "Heard she's losing everything," one guest muttered. "Shame, she seemed promising," another replied. Zara gripped her clutch, forcing a smile as she mingled, but inside, she was unraveling. Lucas arrived late, his black tuxedo sharp against the warm lighting. He spotted Zara across the room, her smile tight, and his heart sank. He'd wanted to call her all day, but work, a crumbling deal in Miami, had kept him tied up. Now, seeing her under siege, he cursed himself for not being there sooner. He approached, his voice soft. "You look incredible, Brooks." Zara's eyes softened, but her tone was guarded. "Thanks, Bennett." "Rough day, though." He nodded, sensing her walls. "Anything I can do?" She shook her head. "Just be here, okay?" He squeezed her hand, a silent promise. The dinner was interrupted by a bombshell. Vanessa Reed, seated at a rival table, had leaked a new batch of emails to a gossip blog, this time accusing Zara of misusing non-profit funds for personal gain. The story hit social media mid-event, and guests began checking their phones, whispers turning to stares. A board member from Zara's non-profit, a stern woman named Elaine, pulled her aside. "Zara, we need to talk. These allegations are serious." Zara's stomach dropped, but she nodded, her voice steady. "They're lies, Elaine. I'll prove it." Elaine's expression was grim. "You have 1 week, or we're suspending your role." Zara excused herself, slipping onto the rooftop terrace where the city's hum drowned out the chatter below. The night air was cool, and rain clouds loomed, mirroring her mood. She leaned against the railing, her hands trembling. The betrayal from her ex, His dismissal of her dreams felt alive again. She'd trusted Greenwave, trusted her instincts, and now she was paying the price. Footsteps broke her thoughts, and Lucas appeared, his tuxedo jacket slung over his shoulder. "Zara," he said, his voice gentle. "Talk to me." She turned, her eyes blazing. "What's there to say, Lucas? My fund's imploding, my name's trashed, and I can't—" Her voice cracked, and she looked away, hating her vulnerability. Lucas stepped closer, his hand hovering near her shoulder. "You're not alone in this," he said. "Let me help." Zara shook her head, her voice rising. "You don't get it. I've always done this on my own. I don't need you or anyone swooping in like some hero." Lucas's eyes darkened, not with anger, but with frustration. "I'm not trying to be a hero, Zara. I'm trying to be with you, but you keep pushing me away." The words hit hard, and Zara's defenses faltered. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavier, soaking her dress and his shirt. "Maybe I push you away because I'm scared," she admitted, her voice raw. "I trusted someone once, and he broke me. I can't do that again." Lucas's expression softened, and he closed the distance, rain dripping from his hair. "I'm not him, Zara. I'm not going anywhere." He reached for her, his hand cupping her cheek, and she didn't pull away. "I'm scared too," he said, his voice barely audible over the rain. "Scared of screwing this up, of not being enough for you." The air crackled, and Zara's walls crumbled. She grabbed his soaked shirt, pulling him into a kiss that was all fire and need. Rain plastered her dress to her skin, his hands sliding down her back, warm against the cold. The kiss deepened, urgent and unyielding, as if they could drown out the world. They stumbled toward a sheltered corner of the terrace, his jacket falling to the ground, her fingers tangled in his hair, his lips trailing to her neck, and for a moment, nothing else existed. No scandal, no secrets, just them. They sank onto a cushioned bench, the rain a curtain around them, their breaths mingling in the dark. The scene faded softly, the intensity of their connection lingering in the patter of rain and the warmth of their closeness. Morning light filtered through Zara's Brooklyn apartment, where she and Lucas lay tangled in her sheets, the rain-soaked night of vivid memory. Her head rested on his chest, his arm around her, but the peace was fragile. She sat up, pulling a blanket around her shoulders, her voice quiet. "Last night was intense." Lucas smiled, brushing a curl from her face. "Good intense, I hope." She nodded, but her eyes were serious. "It was, but this mess with my fund, it's not going away." Lucas sat up, his expression earnest. "We'll figure it out together. You're not fighting alone anymore." Zara wanted to believe him, but Margaret's words, "she's a liability," echoed in her mind. She hadn't told Lucas about the brunch, afraid it would drive a wedge. Instead, she threw herself into damage control. She spent days digging through Greenwave's records, uncovering evidence that the CFO had falsified reports, which she shared with her board. Lila, true to her word, used her journalism contacts to trace the leaked emails to Vanessa's PR firm, exposing the doctored evidence. The story shifted, had Zara fraud faded, replaced by articles praising her tenacity. At a tense board meeting, Zara presented her findings, her voice unwavering. "I made a mistake, trusting the wrong team," she said, "but I'm fixing it. Give me a chance to rebuild." Elaine, the stern board member, nodded. "You've got 1 month. Lucas, meanwhile, confronted Vanessa at a rooftop bar in Chelsea, the city's lights a stark backdrop. Vanessa, in a sleek white dress, sipped a martini, her smile cold. "You're throwing away your future for her, Lucas," she said. "She's a sinking ship." Lucas leaned in, his voice low and hard. "Touch Zara again, and you're done. I know your tricks, Vanessa." She laughed, unfazed. You think you're clean? One call and your little secret from 10 years ago is front-page news. Lucas's fist clenched, but he walked away, his mind racing. He had to tell Zara the truth. But how? The victory was bittersweet. Zara's fund stabilized, but the toll was heavy. She and Lucas met for dinner at a cozy Brooklyn bistro, its exposed brick walls and candlelit tables a warm escape. They shared a plate of truffle fries, their laughter easing the tension. But when Lucas tried to cook dessert at her apartment later, a misguided attempt at crème brûlée, he set off the smoke alarm, the kitchen filling with smoke. Zara doubled over, laughing as she waved a towel at the detector. "You're hopeless, Bennett," she gasped. Lucas, coughing but grinning, pulled her close. "Yeah, but you love my chaos, Brooks." She kissed him, the moment light but real, a reminder of why she was fighting. Lila, ever the chaos agent, posted a photo of them from the bistro on Instagram, captioned, "Brooklyn's hottest power couple." The post went viral, reigniting online buzz. Most comments were supportive, but Chloe Evans, still bitter from the wedding, jumped in, tweeting, "Zara Brooks is a fraud who lucked into a rich boyfriend. #overrated." The jab stung, and Zara's old insecurities flared. She sat on her couch, staring at the tweet, her tea cold. Lucas, beside her, took her hand. "She's jealous, Zara. You're everything she'll never be." Zara nodded, but the doubt lingered. Could she trust this? Trust him, when the world kept trying to tear her down? Lucas felt the shift in her, and it scared him. That night, alone in his penthouse, he pulled out an old letter from a community leader affected by his past deal. "You took our homes, Mr. Bennett." The words burned, a reminder of the man he'd been. He wanted to be better, for Zara, for himself, but Vanessa's threat loomed. His phone buzzed, another message from her. "Time's running out, Lucas. Tell Zara, or I will." He tossed the phone aside, his heart heavy. The truth was coming, whether he was ready or not. Zara, meanwhile, lay awake, the city's hum filtering through her window. She thought of Lucas's arms around her, his fierce defense, the way he made her laugh. But Margaret's warning, Vanessa's attacks, and her own scars held her back. She opened her laptop, pulling up an email from a San Francisco firm, offering her a chance to lead a global investment fund. It was a dream opportunity, but it meant leaving New York and Lucas. She closed the laptop, her mind a tangle of hope and fear. The fight wasn't over, and the next battle would test them both. The Brooklyn street fair pulsed with life, a riot of color and sound under a late autumn sky. Stalls lined the cobblestone blocks, offering everything from hand-poured candles to jerk chicken skewers, the air thick with the scent of caramelized onions and live folk music. Kids darted through the crowd, clutching balloons, while couples sipped cider and haggled over vintage records. It was the kind of day that made New York feel like a small town, and Zara Brooks soaked it in, her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. She wore a cream sweater and jeans, her curls loose under a knit beanie, her brown eyes bright as she laughed with Lila Carter at a booth selling quirky enamel pins. "See, you need this one," Lila said, holding up a pin shaped like a taco with googly eyes. Her mustard-yellow coat popped against the gray street, and her braids swung as she danced to a busker's guitar riff. "It screams Brooklyn boss." Zara rolled her eyes, but her smile was wide. "Lila, my vibe's more coffee mug than taco pin." Lila snorted, pinning it to her own coat. "You're lost, girl, but you're glowing today. What's the deal? Lucas got you all swoony?" Zara's cheeks warmed, and she nudged Lila. "Chill, matchmaker. I'm just happy." And she was. The Green Wave scandal was fading. Her nonprofit's board had given her a month to rebuild, and Lucas's fierce defense at the press conference still lingered like a warm ember. Across the fair, Lucas Bennett navigated the crowd, looking slightly out of place in his tailored navy jacket among the flannel and denim. At 38, he carried himself with the ease of someone used to commanding boardrooms. But today, he was on a mission to help Zara with her nonprofit's booth. The booth, set up to raise funds for her STEM scholarship program, featured flyers and a laptop looping videos of teens in coding workshops. Lucas carried a box of branded tote bags, his green eyes scanning for Zara. He spotted her laughing with Lila, and his chest tightened. She was a force, resilient, brilliant, and so damn real it scared him. But Vanessa Reed's latest threat, "Tell Zara or I will," hung over him like a storm cloud. His past, a decade-old land deal that displaced families, was a secret he'd buried, but it was clawing its way out. Zara saw him and waved, her smile softening the edges of his worry. "Bennett, you made it," she called, jogging over. "Didn't think you'd survive a street fair without a VIP section." Lucas grinned, setting down the box. "I'm full of surprises, Brooks. Plus, I heard there's free cider." Lila smirked, tossing him a tote bag. "Earn it, fancy pants. Start handing out flyers." Lucas caught the bag, mock saluting. "Yes, ma'am." The three of them fell into an easy rhythm, chatting with passers-by, passing out swag, and joking over spilled coffee from a nearby vendor. For a moment, the world felt simple. No scandals, no secrets, just them. But simplicity never lasted. At the booth, a young volunteer tapped Zara's shoulder, holding up a phone. "Ms. Brooks, you need to see this." The screen showed a breaking news article. Lucas Bennett sued over decade-old land deal, questions raised about current projects. The story detailed a 2015 lawsuit accusing Lucas of pushing a community out of their homes for a luxury condo project. Though he'd been cleared, the article, seeded by Vanessa, painted him as a ruthless profiteer. Comments flooded in. "Shady as hell. No wonder he's with Zara. She's just as bad." Zara's stomach dropped, her eyes flicking to Lucas, who was handing a flyer to a kid. He hadn't told her. She pulled him aside, her voice low but sharp. "Lucas, what's this about a lawsuit?" He froze, his jaw tightening. "It's old news, Zara. A deal that went south, but I was cleared." Her eyes searched his, hurt flickering. "Why didn't you tell me? After everything, Green Wave, the leaks, I trusted you." Lucas's hands balled into fists, his voice strained. "I was ashamed, okay? I didn't want you to see me as that guy, the one who messed up." Zara's throat tightened, her past betrayal echoing. "Trust goes both ways, Lucas. I can't do this if you're hiding things." She turned away, her heart aching, and rejoined the booth, throwing herself into work to avoid his gaze. Lila, catching the tension, cornered Lucas near a pretzel stand. "You screwed up, Bennett," she said, her tone blunt but not unkind. "Z's been burned before. If you're not all in, walk away now." Lucas's eyes darkened, but he nodded. "I'm in, Lila. I just need to fix this." He spent the rest of the day at the booth, quietly supporting Zara, handing out flyers with a focus that surprised her. When a group of teens stopped by, he shared a story about his first failed business, making them laugh and earning a small smile from Zara. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. That evening, Zara's nonprofit hosted a community event at a Brooklyn rec center, a celebration of the STEM program's latest graduates. The gym was decked out with string lights and folding tables piled with pizza and soda, the air filled with laughter and the thump of hip-hop from a portable speaker. Zara, in a denim jacket and white tee, handed out certificates, her smile genuine as she hugged each teen. Lucas showed up, uninvited but determined, carrying a stack of donated laptops from his company. "Thought your kids could use these," he said, his voice tentative. Zara's eyes softened, but her guard was still up. Thanks, Lucas. They'll love it. The event was a success, raising $10,000 and rebuilding donor confidence. Lila, snapping photos for her blog, pulled Zara aside. "He's trying, Z," she said, nodding toward Lucas, who was helping a kid set up a laptop. "But don't let him off easy," Zara sighed, her voice quiet. "I want to trust him, Lila. But it's hard." Lila squeezed her arm. "You don't gotta decide today. Just don't close the door." Zara nodded, her gaze lingering on Lucas. He caught her eye and smiled, a small, hopeful gesture that tugged at her heart. But the night brought a new twist. Back at her apartment, Zara received an email from Horizon Ventures, a San Francisco-based firm. "We're impressed with your track record, Ms. Brooks. We'd like you to lead our new Global Impact Fund, starting in 1 month. Relocation to San Francisco required. The offer was a dream. $500 million to invest in underserved communities, a chance to scale her impact worldwide. But it meant leaving New York, her nonprofit, Lila, and Lucas. She sat on her couch, the city's hum filtering through her window, and reread the email, her mind racing. Could she walk away from everything she'd built? From Lucas, despite his secrets? The next day, Zara met Lucas at a quiet park in Dumbo, the Brooklyn Bridge looming in the distance. Fallen leaves crunched under their feet, and the air smelled of damp earth and coffee from a nearby cart. She wore a maroon coat, her curls tucked under a scarf, while Lucas, in a gray sweater, looked tired but determined. "I owe you an apology," he said, his voice low. "I should have told you about the lawsuit. It was a bad deal, Zara. I was young, cocky, thought I was untouchable. I settled it, but I still feel like garbage about it." Zara studied him, her heart torn. "I get why you didn't tell me," she said. "But it hurt, Lucas. I've been lied to before and I can't go through that again." He nodded, his eyes raw. "I'm not that guy anymore. You make me want to be better. Just give me a chance to prove it." She hesitated, then reached for his hand, her touch tentative. "I'm trying," she said. "But no more secrets, okay?" He squeezed her hand, relief washing over him. "Deal." They walked in silence, the bridge's cables casting shadows across the path. Zara wanted to tell him about the San Francisco offer, but the words stuck. Instead, she leaned into him, his warmth grounding her. "You're still trouble, Bennett," she said, a small smile breaking through. He chuckled, pulling her closer. "And you're still my favorite kind of mess, Brooks." Lila's words echoed in her mind. Don't close the door. For now, she'd keep it open, but the choice loomed, heavy and unspoken. Lucas's resolve was tested that night. He met a potential investor at a midtown bar, the kind with leather booths and overpriced whiskey. Vanessa Reed was there, uninvited, her black dress sleek and her smile sharper than a blade. "You're slipping, Lucas," she said, sliding into his booth. "That lawsuit story's just the start. I've got more. Letters, emails, proof you knew what that deal would do." Lucas's blood ran cold, but his voice was steady. "You're bluffing, Vanessa. Back off." She leaned in, her voice a hiss. "Tell Zara the truth, or I'll do it for you. She deserves to know who she's sleeping with." Lucas stood, towering over her. "Stay the hell away from her." He walked out, but his hands shook. Vanessa wasn't bluffing. She had the evidence, and time was running out. Back in Brooklyn, Zara sat at her kitchen table, the San Francisco email open on her laptop. She'd called Lila, who was sprawled on her couch eating popcorn. "San Fran's huge, Z," Lila said, her voice muffled. "But you're Brooklyn through and through. What about Lucas?" Zara sighed, tracing the rim of her mug. "I don't know, Lila. He's trying, but there's still stuff he's not saying." Lila sat up, serious now. Then ask him. But don't run from this offer, or him, out of fear. You're Zara Brooks. You don't run. Zara nodded, but her heart was a tangle. The street fair, Lucas's apology, the laptops for her kids, it all felt real. But so did the email, glowing like a beacon and a warning. Lucas, in his penthouse, stared at a photo of him and Zara from the fair, snapped by Lila. Her smile, bright and unguarded, was a lifeline. He pulled out the old letter from the community leader, "You took our homes," and reread it, the words searing. He had to tell Zara, but not yet. Not until he could prove he was the man she deserved. His phone buzzed, another text from Vanessa. 48 hours, Lucas. Then the world knows. He powered off the phone, his decision made. He'd fight for Zara, whatever it took. Zara, meanwhile, closed her laptop, the city's pulse steady outside. She thought of Lucas's hand in hers, his voice promising no more secrets. But the San Francisco offer was a ticking clock, and her heart was caught between staying and soaring. She whispered to the empty room, "What's my move?" The answer, elusive and heavy, would shape everything. The Waldorf Astoria's grand ballroom in Manhattan was a spectacle of opulence, its gilded ceilings and crystal chandeliers casting a golden glow over the annual Impact Awards gala. Tables draped in midnight blue velvet sparkled with silver cutlery, and the air carried the scent of lavender from towering floral arrangements. Guests, philanthropists, tech titans, and city leaders mingled in tailored tuxedos and shimmering gowns, their laughter blending with the soft clink of champagne flutes. Tonight, Zara Brooks was being honored for her nonprofit's work in STEM education, a beacon of hope after the Green Wave scandal. The event was a triumph, but for Zara, it was also a crossroads. At 35, Zara stood on the stage, her gold gown flowing like liquid sunlight, its off-the-shoulder design accentuating her rich mahogany skin. Her curls were swept into an elegant updo, a single pearl clip catching the light, and her brown eyes shone with a mix of pride and unease. She gripped the podium, her voice steady but warm. "This award isn't just for me," she said, her smile genuine. "It's for the kids who dream bigger than their circumstances, for the communities that lift them up. Thank you for believing in them, and in me." The crowd erupted in applause, a standing ovation that echoed through the ballroom. Zara's nonprofit had raised $1 million that night, and donors were back on board, swayed by her resilience and Lila's expose on Vanessa's doctored leaks. In the front row, Lucas Bennett watched, his black tuxedo sharp against the soft lighting. At 38, his sharp cheekbones and green eyes drew glances, but his focus was solely on Zara. Her speech, her grace, it hit him like a tidal wave. He'd fallen for her, hard, and the weight of his unspoken secret, a decade-old land deal that hurt a community, was crushing him. Vanessa Reed's 48-hour ultimatum had expired, and her silence was more ominous than her threats. Lucas's phone buzzed in his pocket, but he ignored it, clapping as Zara stepped off the stage, her gown trailing like a comet's tail. Lila Carter, in a sapphire dress that hugged her curves, sidled up to Lucas, her braids swinging. "She's killing it, huh?" Lila said, sipping a martini. "You better not mess this up, Bennett." Lucas chuckled, but his eyes were serious. "I'm trying, Lila, believe me." Across the room, Vanessa Reed stood by a champagne tower, her black gown sleek and her smile predatory. She caught Lucas's eye, raising her glass in a mock toast. Chloe Evans, still stinging from the wedding fiasco, hovered nearby, whispering to Vanessa, their glances darting toward Zara. The air felt charged, like the calm before a storm. After her speech, Zara mingled with donors, her smile polished, but her mind elsewhere. The San Francisco offer from Horizon Ventures, a chance to lead a $500 million global impact fund, loomed large. It was a dream, but it meant leaving New York, her nonprofit, Lila, and Lucas. She hadn't told him yet, afraid of what it would mean for them. Her heart was a tug-of-war. Stay with the man who'd stood by her, or seize a career-defining opportunity. As she chatted with a tech CEO, Lucas approached, his hand brushing her arm. "You were incredible up there, Brooks," he said, his voice low and warm. Zara's eyes softened. "Thanks, Bennett. Means a lot." He leaned closer, whispering, "Dance with me later?" She smiled, nodding. "Only if you don't step on my toes this time." The gala shifted to a reception, with a live band playing a jazzy cover of "Isn't She Lovely?" Lila, ever the instigator, dragged Zara and Lucas to the dance floor, where couples swayed under the chandeliers. "Y'all are too cute to sit this out," Lila said, winking. Zara laughed, letting Lucas pull her close. His hand settled on her waist, her fingers resting on his shoulder, and they moved in sync, the world fading to a soft blur. "You clean up nice, Bennett," she teased, her gold gown catching the light. Lucas grinned, his eyes locked on hers. "And you're stealing the show, Brooks." Their banter was easy, but beneath it tension simmered, her unspoken decision, his hidden truth. As the song ended, Zara's phone buzzed in her clutch. She excused herself, stepping onto a quiet balcony overlooking Park Avenue. The city's lights twinkled below, the air cool with a hint of rain. The email was from Horizon Ventures. "We need your decision by Monday, Ms. Brooks. Relocation details attached." Her heart raced, the weight of the choice pressing down. She loved New York, its grit, its pulse, its people. But San Francisco offered a chance to change lives on a global scale. And Lucas, could she leave him, especially after he'd fought for her? Lucas found her on the balcony, his tuxedo jacket unbuttoned, his expression a mix of worry and resolve. "You okay, Zara?" he asked, leaning against the railing. She slipped her phone into her clutch, forcing a smile. "Just needed air. Big night." He studied her, sensing the distance. "Talk to me. Something's up." She hesitated, then took a breath, her voice steady but vulnerable. "I got an offer, Lucas. A big one, leading a global fund in San Francisco. It's everything I've worked for." His face fell, but he nodded, his voice quiet. "That's incredible, Zara. You deserve it." She searched his eyes, her throat tight. "But it means leaving. My nonprofit, Lila. You." Lucas's jaw clenched, his hands gripping the railing. "I don't want to hold you back," he said, his voice rough. "You're meant for big things, Brooks. If San Francisco's your shot, take it." Zara's eyes glistened, her voice barely a whisper. "What about us?" He stepped closer, his hand cupping her cheek. "I'd follow you anywhere, Zara. New York, San Francisco, the moon. Just say the word." Her heart ached, torn between his warmth and her ambition. She leaned into his touch, but before she could speak, he pulled back, his expression shifting to something raw, almost pained. "There's something I need to tell you," Lucas said, his voice low, "about my past." Zara's breath caught, the memory of the lawsuit article flashing in her mind. "Go on," she said, bracing herself. He looked out at the city, his words heavy. 10 years ago, I wasn't just sued. I made a call that hurt people, families who lost their homes because of my deal. I didn't know the full impact then, but I do now. I've been carrying it ever since." His eyes met hers, raw with guilt. "I didn't tell you because I was scared you'd see me differently. But you deserve the truth." Zara's heart pounded, a mix of hurt and understanding. "Why now, Lucas?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Because Vanessa's about to blow it up?" His silence was answer enough, and she stepped back, her eyes flashing. "I asked for no more secrets, Lucas. You promised." He reached for her, his voice desperate. "I know I messed up, But I'm telling you now because I love you, Zara. I can't lose you." The words hung between them, raw and real, and Zara's walls trembled. Love, he'd said it, and despite the hurt, it hit her like a wave. But before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. A text from Lila. "Get inside, Z. Vanessa's here, and she's up to something." They returned to the ballroom, the mood shifting as Vanessa took the stage, uninvited, her black gown stark against the golden light. She charmed the MC into giving her the mic, claiming she wanted to honor Zara. The crowd hushed, sensing drama. "Zara Brooks is an inspiration," Vanessa said, her smile tight. "But let's talk about the company she keeps. Lucas Bennett, her partner, has a past that raises questions. A decade ago, he displaced families for profit. Is that the kind of man we celebrate?" Gasps rippled through the room, phones flashing as guests recorded. Chloe Evans, smirking in the crowd, live-streamed the moment, her followers eating it up. Zara stood frozen, her gold gown catching the light, her heart racing. Lucas stepped forward, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "Vanessa, enough," he said, his tone hard. "I've owned my mistakes. That deal was a decade ago, and I've spent years making amends, quietly, because it's not about headlines. Zara's the best thing in my life, and I won't let you drag her down with me." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others skeptical. Vanessa's smile faltered, but she pressed on. "Amends? Like what, Lucas? Donating pocket change to ease your guilt?" Before Lucas could respond, Zara stepped onto the stage, her presence commanding. "Let me be clear," she said, her voice steady but fierce. "I don't judge people by their worst moments. I judge them by what they do next. Lucas is here, supporting kids who need it, just like I am. Vanessa, if you want to throw stones, start with your own house." The crowd erupted, clapping and cheering, Zara sleighs trending within minutes. Vanessa's face tightened, and she stormed off, Chloe trailing behind, their plan backfiring. Lila, in the crowd, raised her glass, shouting, "That's my girl!" Later, Zara and Lucas slipped back to the balcony, the city sprawling below. The gala continued inside, but out here it was just them, the air cool and heavy with unspoken words. Zara's gold gown shimmered, but her eyes were serious. "You should have told me sooner," she said, her voice soft but firm. Lucas nodded, his hands in his pockets. "I know, I was a coward, but I meant what I said. I love you, Zara." She looked at him, her heart a tangle of hope and fear. "I love you too," she admitted, the words freeing and terrifying. "But I need time. This offer, your past, it's a lot." Lucas's face fell, but he nodded, his voice quiet. "Take all the time you need. Just don't shut me out." He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, and she didn't pull away. They stood in silence, the city's hum a steady pulse. But Lucas's expression shifted, a flicker of something darker crossing his face. "There's more to my past," he said, his voice barely audible. "Something I haven't told you. It's not just the lawsuit." Zara's breath caught, her eyes widening. "What is it, Lucas?" He opened his mouth, then stopped, his jaw tight. "I can't. Not yet. But I will, I swear." Before she could press, Lila burst onto the balcony, her phone in hand. "Z, you're blowing up online, but we gotta go. Vanessa's talking to reporters." Zara nodded, her mind reeling. She looked at Lucas, his half-spoken secret hanging between them. "We're not done talking," she said, her voice firm. He nodded, his eyes raw. "I know." As they rejoined the gala, Zara's phone buzzed, a reminder from Horizon Ventures, decision due Monday. She slipped it into her clutch, her heart torn. Back at her Brooklyn apartment, Zara sat on her couch, the city's lights filtering through her window. The gala's triumph felt distant, overshadowed by Lucas's words. There's more. She replayed their journey, the wedding clash, the farmer's market laughs, the rain-soaked night on the terrace. He loved her, and she loved him. But love wasn't enough without trust. The San Francisco offer glowed on her laptop, a beacon of possibility. She called Lila, who answered from a noisy bar, her voice warm. "What's your move, Z?" Lila asked, cutting through the chatter. Zara stared at the skyline, her voice a whisper. "I don't know, Lila. I don't know." In his penthouse, Lucas sat at his desk, a glass of bourbon untouched. He held the old letter from the community leader. "You took our homes." Its words, a knife. But there was more, a truth he hadn't shared. He'd ignored warnings about the deal's impact, prioritizing profit over people. The guilt had shaped him, driven him to fund community projects anonymously, but it wasn't enough. Vanessa had proof, emails, memos, and her next move could destroy him. He looked at a photo of Zara from the street fair, her smile bright, and his resolve hardened. He'd tell her everything, but first, he had to stop Vanessa. Vanessa, in her sleek Manhattan office, scrolled through the gala footage, her lips curling. Zara's speech had turned the tide, but she wasn't done. She typed a draft email to a major news outlet, attaching files labeled Bennett evidence. Her phone buzzed, a text from Chloe. "Make her pay." Vanessa smiled, hitting save. The game wasn't over. Zara stood on her fire escape, the city sprawling below. Lucas's love, his half-truths, the San Francisco offer, they swirled in her mind, a storm with no clear path. She whispered to the night, "What's my move?" The answer, elusive and heavy, hung in the air, a question only time could answer. Hey, Zara's at a crossroads and Lucas's secret could change it all. Smash that subscribe button, comment your predictions. Will Zara stay or go? What's Lucas hiding? Let's unravel this story together.